Hi, welcome to the hot seat. I'm Josephine Moon. So happy today to have Karina May here to tell us all about her debut book. Welcome, Karina.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me.
So great to have you here. I would love for you to tell us all about your brand spanking new debut book.
Yes, well, I've actually got a very exciting advanced copy here. So this is not the cover, but it was the first time me seeing it in print last week. It's Duck à l'Orange for breakfast, and it's a rom-com set between Paris and Sydney and told via 14 French recipes. And it follows Max Mayberry, who's a 30-year-old ad executive with ambitions of becoming a novelist, who is at the hardest time in her life. She's gone through a massive heartbreak and has recently been diagnosed with a benign brain tumor. So a lot going on for her. She moves in with her bestie Alice, who kind of takes her in, and Alice convinces her to sign up to Tinder as a distraction from the heartbreak and also to while away the weeks in the lead up to her surgery. And she meets Johnny, who is a charming, witty pen pal who's also maybe a bit of a player. So he has no interest in meeting her, just the forever texting. And together they start to cook through the recipe book of Max's ex-boyfriend's family, the Laurent family, who are a pretentious French family. It's kind of like a deranged Julia and Julia healing exercise. So they have no intentions of ever meeting. You know, Max obviously has a lot going on and John is very mysterious. We're not sure what he's got going on. So the cookbook drop is done at IKEA. So that's how the recipes kind of are exchanged. And each night they meet and cook through. And Max is very much a Carrie Bradshaw, sweaters in the stove type of character. So she's also learning to cook for the first time. And yeah, Max ends up traveling to Paris because the book obviously has to go there if we're talking about French recipes. And through the course of the story, starts to really learn to trust herself and to go after the thing and potentially the man that she really wants. So it's a fun, flirty, but also pulls on the heartstrings because obviously, you know, there's a lot of serious kind of medical stuff going on as well in the book. So it was a lot of fun to write.
Actually sounds really fabulous. I mean, you had me at recipes in Paris. Come
Yeah,
on.
yes, I thought so. I know my target audience.
I think most people are just going to be like, oh, food, Paris, I'm in. And I'm sure that Emily in Paris will probably help that vibe as well. And of course, you've got lots of meaty drama in there as well. So I think it's going to be really great. And I can't wait to read it as well. This is your debut book, but I know that this is not the first manuscript you've written. You've written a few now. When was the time in your life when you knew you wanted to be a writer?
I think actually pretty early. I knew I was a storyteller. Actually, at primary school and high school, I was kind of labeled as a bit of a gossip. And I used to think about that and think, is it still a gossip when it's made up or it's about myself? And then slowly I start to realize, oh, I just love stories and I love details. So from that, I thought I would go into a career, a journalism career. So I studied that at uni and I worked in magazines to close to a decade. And then I decided to move to digital marketing just with the kind of decline of magazines. And I think it was when I started working in digital marketing, maybe about 8 years ago, I miss writing and I'd only ever written nonfiction with magazines. So I think that was when the creative part started to take over. And I thought, oh, what if I actually write down some of these stories? So yeah, I always was interested in words and writing and reading, but I had never thought about it creatively until I had the capacity to, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And a lot of us, I think, have studied journalism. I know I did as well, and I sort of go through that pathway. But I actually love what you were saying about being called a gossip, and I just think that's a really interesting take on, what people perceive as something. This is gossip versus actually it's creative engagement with story. I just think that that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, I never fit the label. I never like I accepted it and I was like, oh, I guess I'm a gossip. And then it took me, maturity and learning about the world to just, and obviously I've recast a lot of events that happened in my childhood based off now, like the perception of like, that's actually not what was going on. So yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of step into this like I'm a storyteller and I'm owning it. And now, I have a book to prove it.
Yeah, good for you. I think that's really cool. So when was the moment you knew you wanted to write this particular book?
Well, just like Max, I also went through a couple of brain surgeries. So I think, so there's this book, definitely is colored by like a small slice of my own personal life. I was already writing when that happened. And I think just the fear of facing that type of surgery and not knowing how my brain or how I was going to be after and how I was going to get through it. It started really like fermenting how much I actually wanted to be a writer and an author. And so that's where the seed of this idea came from, because obviously Max, the protagonist, is a very similar thing. She's facing a health scare. So it definitely was planted from that. And I actually started writing the book straight away after actually my first surgery, before I knew I had to have a second one. And I realized it was too raw. So I shelved that. I wrote another manuscript and then revisited it. So I think, what do they say? Right from scars, not wounds. So it was definitely, I could, then have a lens and kind of the learning that I had going through that, sharpening of purpose, which is the message, I think, of this book. And then the fun element of the Fork Him project was definitely inspired by an old flatmate that I had, where we actually had her sister's ex's family recipe book. And we thought it was so funny to cook the recipes. When she found out we were doing that, she didn't find it very funny. But I think we used to call it the Fork Him project. So I always just loved that. And so I kind of just combined those two ideas. And I think that's what brought together this story for me.
That is such interesting background to this story. I didn't know that about you. That's quite, that brings so much, verisimilitude is the word, to the book, like that, just having that depth of experience. And I'm sure that will just resonate so strongly through the pages, and your readers will take a lot away with them because of that, because of your experience.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes from real life experience. So hopefully, that's colored in the pages. It's not completely the same. I'm not Max, but I think having that personal experience hopefully helps strengthen, what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So until this moment with this book, you've been a working person. I mean, you'll still be a working person in lots of different ways. But I know when you're sort of committed to time like that, it can be hard to make that transition between work you and creative you. Are there any particular sort of rituals or just things you need in order to make that transition to get into that space?
Yeah, I mean, I think the context switching between like day jobs. So I'm a digital marketer now. I'm lucky to have my own business, so I can, to a degree, be flexible with my hours. But I think as well, it depends on what stage I am at in the writing. So I think it's a bit harder to context shift from a spreadsheet to writing a new chapter in the middle of the day. So if I am writing actively, normally just something new, like either a walk, a fresh route on my walk, or sometimes I'll move spaces. So either around my apartment or go and visit a cafe. And if I'm really feeling like I need to mix things up, I'll try a new cafe. So I think I'm really inspired by newness and new observations. So I think, we were talking before this chat just about how I used to have a separate work computer and writing computer, and how that really helped me separate things. But then I don't think that that's very practical. So I've had to work out ways to shift it mentally throughout the day. And as I said, I am lucky in that I have flexible work. So there are definitely pockets in the day that I can dedicate to writing.
Yeah, yep. No, it all sounds really good. And walking is a well-known sort of thing to do, to just break through blocks and just let your brain breathe, I think.
Yeah. And I realized recently, and I know you're also an audiobook addict, Joe, that I was maybe putting too much in. So I just became obsessed with audiobooks and being able to listen, which is amazing. I love audiobooks. But when I was away recently, I had no Wi-Fi and I hadn't downloaded like a recent audiobook. So I was left with my own thoughts, and I was writing so many notes on my phone. There were so many ideas. So it actually was a reminder to kind of vary up what I do when I'm walking. So audiobooks are great, and I feel so inspired, especially when I'm reading like really great text. But equally, to have those walks where I'm not inputting anything, I think is also really great for me creatively. So that's a recent learning that I'm trying to like, be very strict with, like, no, last walk you had audiobooks. So this walk, you're supposed to just be with your own thoughts.
Whatever works, whatever gets you through and gets the words on the page. Yeah, for sure. How do you want your readers to feel when they get to the end of your book?
Empowered, I think. Like it is light and a fun read, but with deeper themes, which I always think is great, because sometimes you don't realize how much you're feeling throughout it, and then at the end you feel really moved, or but I guess the arc of the story is, Max in the beginning is kind of like the gaslit girlfriend, just really not the self-esteem, and by the end, I hope people to really see that they are in control of their own life, and that we are powerful humans. And so I think just a feeling of empowerment.
I think that's really lovely. It's a great thing to want your readers to feel. I have a very strong visual brain, so when I read books, I see them as movies on the big screen, and I haven't even read your book yet. I can already see it on the big screen. Who would you cast to play your main characters?
I've thought about this a lot. So definitely for Max, Megan Fay. So she was in The Bold Type, and most recently in the recent season of White Lotus. I think she definitely fits who I see, because Max is, I think, a very likable character. She's very realistic, but she's got big feelings and dreams. And for the protagonist, for the love interest, Johnny, he's got a Greek background, and I'm yet to find someone that I'm happy with to play. I've really been Google searching. When I wrote the book, I had Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek in mind, but he's not Greek, and also he's now in his early 40s or mid 40s, and the Johnny character is 30. So I'm still auditioning for that role, I think.
Nice.
If you know any bearded, like he loves a Canadian tuxedo, so like denim on the top, denim on the bottom. If anyone comes across your mind, let me know.
Maybe we can send photos to each other until we nail it. Going back to your childhood, were there really significant books in your childhood that you feel have influenced your writing journey?
Yeah, I mean, there's one book that I always go back to, which is Paulina Simmons' The Bronze Horseman, which I know is very popular, among a lot of people my age. I think, I'm not sure when it came out, maybe early 2000. I just remember my mum is a big reader, so she was reading it, and my sister read it, and so it felt very communal. I think it was the first time it's like we were discussing book ideas, and I just love the love story in that book. I write romantic comedy or romance. So I think that how I felt reading that book, I've always wanted to emulate in real life, which is maybe not feasible, but on the page as well. So I would definitely say that book. And I reread it every couple of years as well. And when you reread books, like each time, depending on what you're going through in your life, like it reads differently as well.
It does, and depending what age you are and what stage you're at, and what you're working on yourself, and all sorts of things. I love that about books. They're not. I mean, I know they're static words on the page, but they still feel like living things, I think.
Yeah.
With you, yeah. What are you currently reading?
Actually, I've got it here. Hoping to get to this. So I've been actually reading my own book, proofing it before it gets sent to the printers. But this is Jessica Detman's March 8 release. So I was lucky enough to get an advance copy without further ado. So Jess has just been a huge influence on my writing, I think. Like I picked up her first book, How to Be Second Best, a few years ago. And that was when I first saw a voice that I was like, oh, I love this voice. Like, I'd love to be writing this way. So she's got a forever fangirl in me. She's an auto-buy author. So I'm just so excited that now, you know, I get to have advanced copies and I get this before it hits the shelves. So, but it's out very soon.
Yeah, it's one of the great perks of being a writer is you get
Yeah.
lovely advanced copies sent your way. And Jessica's a great writer, so yeah, I do not have a copy of that one yet. I would like one, but that's okay.
Well,
Wait,
yes. This was a bit of a black market, you know. I'll give you this one if you give me this one. So yeah, and Jessica was really kind to read Duck as well and provide a blurb quote, which meant so much to me as an author that I have admired for so long. I think that was a real like pinch me moment of like, this feels very full circle to me.
Yeah, beautiful. That's awesome. And my last question then is, what are you working on now? What can we look forward to?
Well, I've actually got a book coming out in December. So called Never Ever Forever. So that's about to start structural edits. And so, yes, I'll be working on that really soon. And in the meantime, I'm just working on a new manuscript, still at the very early stages and just having a play. I think after spending a lot of time refining, you know, Duck and going through the editing phase, I'm just in more of a creative, let's get some words down. So I'm trying to do that before I head into edits for Never Ever Forever, which will be, my December release.
Wow, 2 books in 1 year. Amazing.
No, it's like, baptism by fire, I think. But it's, you know, it's so exciting that this is happening. And I think working as well with professional editing teams, I'm just learning so much in that process. I've obviously been writing for a long time, but I think it's something different to work with experts and their processes. And so I learned so much through the editing process of Duck that I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into Never Ever Forever. And that's been rested, that manuscript, for quite a long time. So I think I won't be too precious with letting go of things. And so that's what I'm up to.
Well, you're up to a lot, and that's awesome. Yeah. I'm excited for you for this year and both your books coming out this year, and see what will be coming next, because I'm sure you've got many more books ahead of you in the future. So thank you so much for joining us in the hot seat today.
Thanks, Jo. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We'll see you out on the trail in the publicity world somewhere.
Thank you.
See ya.